So what does it mean to be different, to be utterly and completely different? I was a Japanese kid, an Asian kid in an all-white neighborhood. And sadly, my clicker's not working. Let's try this one more time here. And this is my story. One moment. Let me do that one more time. Let's try that again.
Are we ready?
So what does it mean to be different, completely and utterly different? Our family was an only Asian family in an all Caucasian neighborhood, but more than that, even among Asians, I'm different. You see, I'm half Japanese, half Chinese. I'm a statistical anomaly. But more than that, I was the kid with a weird pet. I had a dog, a really cool mutt of a dog, except my parents had named our dog Kitty. But more than that, my last name, Yamashita, or if you say it correctly, Yamashita, is itself an anomaly of my grandfather taking my grandmother's last name. You see, her lineage was going to die, and so my grandfather kindly took her last name as his own. So I give you all of that as background to help you understand my story, which starts some 40 years ago. And it's a story about my grandfather, my Ji-chan, as we called him. Now, Ji-chan was interesting. He came to America. He was a hard worker. He was a farmer. He was a Buddhist. He was very short, but incredibly mighty. And he spoke so little English. And so it was always really amusing hanging out with my grandfather. You know, we had really no way to communicate. My mother, because she was Chinese, the only way they could share ideas is through gestures, and then he would say things like this, which in Japanese means your mother is Chinese, and we all know what that means. So anyway, it was my mom's job to keep my grandfather entertained, and on this day, she decides to take us all to the Japanese Deer Park in Buena Park, California. Now, the irony of this did not occur to me until much later in life, to take my Japanese grandfather to an artificial Japanese garden to see Japanese deer in a smoggy city called Buena Park, California, which for you Spanish speakers in Espanol means good park. But I can assure you there was nothing buena and hardly any park going on there, which is really kind of why my sister and I didn't want to go. We'd much rather stick in the backyard and play with our rabbit, our bunny, who we had named Bun Bun. But rather than fight it, we were dutiful, because that's what Asian kids do. And we got in the car and rode the long way. It was hot, it was smoggy, and when we finally got there, we were hungry. And so we had our Japanesque lunch, and then we ate too much, and so we went to have a look at the koi, which are basically gigantic, overgrown goldfish. And then we went and saw the alligators, which I really still don't know why there were alligators at a Japanese deer park. And then we saw the deer. The afternoon was joyous. It was full of deer of all types and sizes, Japanese deer, and we had a really amazing time until one of them ate my sister's sweater. I mean, literally ate it. And my sister was so upset that she said, we have to go home. So we went the long ride home, back in the car. We burst into the house. Night had fallen. And we were like, let's go play with the rabbits. So we jetted outside. And I remember this. We peered into the cage. Night had fallen, and the rabbit was asleep. And I reached my hand into the small cage door, and I'm trying to get the rabbit out. And I remember my dad coming outside to the patio, and I was trying to get the rabbit out, but the rabbit was stiff, and I couldn't fit the rabbit through the door. My dad opens the top of the cage and brings out the rabbit and cradles him in his arms. And then our grandfather joins us, and in plain and clear English, really the only English I ever remember him saying, he says, Bun Bun, dead. And that was my first encounter with loss and separation and losing something. You know, a couple months later, I was at my friend Shelley's house with my sister, and I remember our dad coming to pick us up, and I remember Shelley's mom and my dad whispering in the hall, it happened so quickly. Oh, George, I'm sorry. It was really for the best. On the way home, my dad explained to us that my grandfather simply stopped living. He had died that afternoon. You know, Buddhist funerals are really unsettling. There's a lot of gongs, a lot of chanting, and you don't get to see the person. There's no casket. And so one day my grandfather was simply completely gone. And isn't that how loss works? Separation and time and people slipping away from us. You know, we let them, these moments kind of defeat us. We let them whittle away at our greatness. We run away from them because we don't want to feel them. You know, this became so true to me just a little while ago with my son. My life partner, my true love, Todd, and I had always known my son was going to need open heart surgery. We had rehearsed it in our head, this handing over of our kid to the medical team. Miles was just 6 months old. But that day went differently than planned. Our anesthesiologist, with whom we'd had lots of different conversations, was late to work that day. He slept in late or got stuck on the freeway. And so we're sitting there talking to this new anesthesiologist who was just filling in. And he's going through all the statistics. X% chance that Miles would die on the table, Y% chance that he'd have a stroke in the operation, Z% chance he'd have some permanent disability. And then I think to make us feel better, he says, well, we do this surgery all the time. It's nothing really. It's just like going to the dentist. It's nothing. Nothing. And, you know, it went differently as rehearsed. Miles was already asleep, and so we put him in the hands of this anesthesiologist who we had only known for 5 minutes. And together they turn and they walk through that stainless steel door. And that began this aching separation, this kind of goodbye. Okay. I share with you these stories not because they're extraordinary. They are super ordinary. You have a story just like mine. It may be going on in your life right now because, you know, frankly, we are always saying goodbye to somebody, something, or someone we love. So what's the antidote to all of this? It's the belief that just on the other side of separation is this possibility of connection. And to partake in that connection, we just have to remember that there are always two magnetic poles at play. There is love and fear. Fear that we're going to get left behind, fear we don't matter, fear that anything that we want in life can be taken away like that. And then love. Wow. We are always capable of love. We are capable of loving the ideas, the people next to us, those molecules in that person that are sitting next to us. We are always capable of love because life is what we choose, fear or love. And it is that choice that brings us into this room today. It's that choice that connects us to the person next to us. We convene like it matters because it does. We convene like we need each other because we do. That's my boy Miles, age 6. And that brings us here in this very present moment with all of our suffering and all of our fear and all of our separation. And we are going to defiantly lean in and be open-hearted about what comes next. Enjoy.